Hi, Candy.
Hi. Good to see you.
Good
Good
to
to
see
see
you too.
whoever else is out there.
Digging out from 18 inches of snow here in the Northeast.
Yeah, we can talk shoveling.
Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. Candy and I, as you may know, we are teaching a retreat in Vermont this October. It's called Effort Made Good, and it's all about how to integrate leverage, muscularity, and constraint into your Feldenkrais understanding and your practice. And we're going to have four different conversations along these lines. The first conversation today is really going to be about effort, about the topic, about the value of effort, about the misconstrual of effort that often pervades our professional community. The second topic is going to be about a framing for neuroplasticity and how effort plays a role in neuroplasticity. The third topic is really going to be about breaking the rules that nobody made in our profession. And the fourth conversation is going to be about something we'll call the consolidation gap, which is about how you use muscularity, leverage, and constraint to really improve and scale your abilities. So today's topic is it's about effort. Um, there are a lot of different kinds of lessons in the Feldenkrais method, but for the most part, I think practitioners mostly get trained in the reduction of effort,
Do
almost to
less, rest
do
more.
rest more, do less, almost to infinity sometimes. And while this is one valuable strategy, it is not the only strategy. How do you think going slowly, doing the minimum, always doing less, how did this get so related to efficiency?
Well, I mean, as a step one, it makes sense,
Yes,
right?
it is useful.
I mean, think about like the other kinds of intentional or mindful movement, like Tai Chi, like Qigong, like walking meditation, right? All of those things are slow because when it's slowed down, just like if you're learning a piece of music, if you slow it down, you can collect a lot more sensory details and you have a lot more time to change your mind in mid intention and to experiment. So as a as a means of understanding choice and experimenting and building efficiency, perfectly sensible. But then what, right? Because if you look if you look at the other kinds of things like qigong, like tai chi, then you wind up doing it in ways that requires endurance, that requires resilience. Like you got to hold your hands out. It's not like, oh, just rest whenever you need to. You got to hold those hands out for like the
Right.
next hour. You got to hold them
Well,
out.
the model of efficiency you're supposedly building is everybody wants it to scale. They want it to scale up and, integrate into their activities of life.
Right.
And
So why we made this like the most important aspect of our work, that we do less. We rest more. We just do the initiation. I don't know, how do you think that became this sort of badge of honor
yeah,
for
I'll,
our work?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you my interpretation of how it got there. I think the Weber-Fechner law, the law of just noticeable difference, I think it's the most scientific thing that people can claim inside the teaching of the Feldenkrais method. I think it just happened. It happens to be an actual law. It's an actual theorem. You can go look it up. It happens to work. It's very useful to reduce the amount of effort you're putting into something, so you can specify, you can qualify your effort, which is really what I think the method is really built to do. how, and I think it's just very seductive that it's almost like to an infinite regress, this law is somehow going to just, it's going to create all the efficiency that I think I'm going to get. And I think it's just a tool is what it is. It's just a tool for making you more sensitive than you might otherwise be to
Right.
inefficiency or discomfort or comfort. You can sense your way more clearly. It does work. But life is not lived at a minimum of effort. And this is where I think people get caught up in the trap, or certainly practitioners can get caught in this trap of thinking that everything is about reducing the effort. It's not. You certainly, I mean, I've been watching the Olympics. Clearly, effort and inefficiency, I don't know where those things got conflated, but clearly you can watch people making enormous efforts, spectacular efforts that are done very efficiently.
Also, I just want to say, like, if I'm doing something, some movement in an ATM way, or I'm just rolling over in the bed, or I'm just taking a shower, as a Feldenkrais teacher, like I can't do anything without thinking about every single cell of my being doing it. But the minute I start efforting, I have to change my organization. It's not that, it's what I learned in the beginning when I was doing effort. That's a good way to start.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good initiation. But how do I layer the next level, the next level, the next level, the next level, so that I can accomplish the thing if I've never practiced, tracked, analyzed, experimented with all of those other things? I told you I was going to talk about my puppy.
Mm.
So, my puppy, when I got her, was 8 pounds. She was a little puppy, and I could do all the puppy things with her, kind of like a baby. When you have a baby, especially if you're a woman and you carry the baby, you grow the baby, you birth the baby, well, then you kind of get used to that weight. You grow your strength, and then the baby gets born and you start carrying the 8-pound baby along, and then the baby slowly grows. Puppies grow a lot faster. Girlfriend is 6 months old and she weighs 30 pounds, which is more than 30% of my body weight.
Mm.
I must pick up the puppy, who, by the way, is not still, often does not want to be picked up. I must regularly pick up the puppy and place the puppy in her car seat in the car so that we can go to the puppy engagements. Now, I got to tell you, because, I'm a Feldenkrais person, here's the thing, like, oh, it's really interesting and familiar when I do the squat down and I feel my grounding and I feel that connection to my spine, and I, wrap her up in the prescribed puppy lifting manner. And it's really easy for me when I, push down on my feet and begin the lift, when it's like quarter of her weight or even half of her weight. But there's a moment when all of a sudden I've got all of her weight, and I have got to find a lot more resources to find the efficiency in not only lifting that 30 pounds, but then putting it into
Taking
the
her
car
somewhere.
seat.
Yeah, you've got to get enough power to actually lift her, but then also carry her
Right.
to
And
where you're
I
taking her.
have to track that, because, I could hurt myself, of course, very easily. How many people get hurt putting the baby in the car seat or
Yeah,
doing
sure.
that lift and the twist? So it's been really fascinating for me because the buildup has been so fast, and because I have to track it. And I just want to say, I feel really proud of myself because I paid such close attention I've experimented in so many ways. I've had to do it so many times. And now when I do it, like I feel the yes. That yes feels so good. I'm like, got this puppy. I'm gonna put that puppy. And you know what? Next week when she's 40 pounds, I'm gonna have to be even
Of
better.
course. No, I mean it's a satisfying thing to make a good effort to know what you're doing and for all of your past learning and experimentation to actually cash out into the actual performance of something you got to do, putting your heavy suitcase into the overhead compartment or shoveling snow for us on the East Coast these days. It's the idea of getting siloed somehow into you're only ever efficient when you're making the least possible effort. This is an error, I think.
It's an
And
error.
and I also just think it's like, what do you think? What's the cost of sort of pushing effort so far out of the domain of the method for teachers? Like what happens for teachers when they really don't have enough contact or a more reasonable sort of scaling process where they understand what effort really is, how it works.
Well, I mean, pick an area. Well, let's just talk about ourselves, our as because we're humans, and we ascribe to this less effort the better, more efficient, you know, do less. Then how do I maintain my capacities as I get older? If I don't, if I never believe in effort, then I'm sorry, but physiologically, if you don't use it, you lose it. This is true neurologically and physiologically.
Yeah,
It's muscular atrophy. I don't use that muscularity. It goes away because I don't need it. And 10 years from now, then I don't even have what it takes to do no effort. I become less and less functional
yeah.
between my devotion to being efficient and effortless and my age-related muscular atrophy. I'm going to be what you call frail. And as a practitioner, then how am I going to haul somebody off the table?
Yeah. There really is. I think part of the goal with the retreat is also to help practitioners not be afraid to deal with effort, not to be scared of it or to disdain it somehow, even in the learning process. Many clients need to know how to generate effort well, how to understand how it works. They need the other stuff too. They need the ability to slow down and look at the details. But I'm 55. I started weight training about 3.5 years ago. I'm still going with it. It's been a really good learning process, and it's been.
What did you learn?
I mean, first of all, I was a classical pianist before I got into Feldenkrais, and so I was an athlete as a kid, and then I got into music, and then my athletic my athletic time really was just funneled into sitting at the piano. But I remember as a pianist thinking I need to exercise. I need to get, I'm in my 20s. But going to the gym, anytime I would work out, it's not that I would get hurt, but I never would really feel very good. It made me feel threatened. My hands felt stiff after, you lift some weights, your hands, of course, feel a little stiff.
Yeah.
And that made me scared because I just didn't know what it meant. I had had some tendonitis injuries, et cetera. I'm like anybody else. I was kind of at sea in my own subjective experience of my body. Now, certainly in the last, I mean, for me anyway, the last 10 or 15 years, you know, the evidence is in and it just keeps accumulating as to how important strength training is, cardiovascular fitness training.
Mm-hmm.
These are the superpowers that make aging and longevity possible, that really smooth out your health span, let alone your lifespan. There are two articles actually we were talking about the other day. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna pull them up on the screen here.
Good, good.
They're both in the New York Times. One was it's just sort of a standard New York Times health article, How I Love to Learn Lifting Heavy. It's written by a reporter named, here she is, Lisa Miller. And she says she's 62 years old. And it's a lovely article where she just describes, um, realizing that she's getting older and she decides to embrace weight training. And a couple of the quotes that were so great in the article were when she talks about, she says the art of heavy lifting is learning to operate in the margin between success and failure. I thought that was a lovely image. She says you ask your body to move so much weight that it forces an argument in your mind. Can
Uh-huh.
I? Can't I? Will I? Won't I? She said one of my classmates calls each lift, quote, an act of courage.
I like that.
Which is great. I mean, for us, in the learning, the very low effort learning domain, I think there's a lot of lip service paid to this place where you're in the moment of choice, where you're learning how to specify your sensory input and how you're going to move, or you might be in a difficult lesson and you're trying to sort through how you're going to both take care of yourself but also honor the instructions of the lesson. When I started lifting weights, I mean, I kind of knew what I thought it was going to do for me, right? Like anybody. Why am I going to lift weights? It's obvious. I would like to get a little stronger, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to compete, but I know that lifting is going to get me stronger and I would like some of that. And I do a kind of strength training that's high intensity, but it's on machines.
Hmm.
And the whole design of it is that you go till failure.
Right.
Now, you learn to modulate what exactly failure means, but it isn't just like, well, that was 10. Okay. It really is supposed to be that in the last of the slow repetitions, you're shaking and quaking as you still try to control the weight because that's the signal. That is the adaptation signal the body gets to grow more muscle. That's what it needs to grow more muscle. Now, I'm sure there's more to it than that, but that's for the layman, and I would consider myself a layman. That's the signal you sort of learn to identify as have I worked hard? Have I done a lot? I don't think you have to work quite that hard all the time, but
Right. I mean,
yeah,
I do take a little issue
yeah,
with this idea. Uh, um, well, first of all, that it is true that muscle responds well to that kind of technique, to exercising to the point of exhaustion. Muscle responds well. Muscle has a great blood supply. You're just
right.
building more blood supply. It repairs quickly. It's a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, the tendons, which connect the muscles to the bones, they
Not so
do not
much.
have that privilege. They
Yeah,
have little to no circulation. They can be easily damaged. And so, I feel like when people, especially when they start weightlifting, and I ran a gym for 7 years at first for people with serious spine injuries.
mhm.
So, I it wasn't a gym for the 20 somethings who are super buff. It was a gym for, like regular people who need to do something now. But anyway, that's my first thing that I think for all the folks out there, if you're going to start,
Yeah,
like really,
the gradualism is a very important aspect of
right. So
how you start to.
I think when you start, you're really better off doing a higher rep, lower weight
Yeah,
so that your tendons, your ligaments, your joints, which maybe when you're 20 are perfectly happy, and when you're 65, maybe they've had a little wear and tear.
right.
Because we also run into this thing. This is another trap. I run into this with my clients all the time. I ran into it today.
Mm,
Like, I do my workout with my trainer. I'm hurt. Now I have to stop until I am better. Then I'm going back to do my workout with my trainer. I will do exactly what my trainer says. And now I'm hurt again. So I have to stop. So this is the interface, really. Like, I gave this talk today. Like, okay, here's the thing. Like, you are a good student.
Right.
You
You're
are
disciplined and consistent. Right.
you are following the cultural militaristic expectations of what you should be doing and feeling when you are lifting weights, that you're not actually feeling anything. You're not attending to it. You're just doing
You're just
that.
performing
It
it. Yeah.
can look like the formula.
Yeah.
And that's the place that we can really serve all those people in the gym. Like, let's see if we can cultivate your awareness, your sensitivity, so that you know way before there's an injury or an inflammatory response
Right.
that you have become inefficient or you're driving the forces in some way that can cause structural harm.
And you become the kind of person that can begin their repetition of their chest press and actually sense something is a little bit off, and you can decide, no, not today.
Right.
There's something I don't quite understand. It doesn't make any sense to put a ton of force through this particular little issue that I seem to be having today. Let's wait and see what life is like tomorrow. Then you can use your Feldenkrais, skills, your sensitivity of coordination. You can come back another day and not damage yourself in the very activity that's supposed to be helping you, which is
Right.
the
Or you
the
can do
sad
the
problem of it
other.
all. Yeah.
Or you start your chest press and you're like, that that feels risky. So then what do? You say, okay, well, what if I push with my feet while I'm doing it? What am I using my scapulas? What am I doing with my scapulas?
Hmm.
Am I sending them forward or am I trying to round my shoulders? What am I doing with my back? Like, what's my head doing? Like, if I drop the weight, how much weight do I have to drop before I can feel like, oh, I've got it? And then can I go up incrementally? All those things that we would do in an ATM lesson,
Are
taking
available.
it
Yeah.
down to its essence, building it back up, doing the gym.
Yeah.
And then maybe it was just a little momentary lapse in sensory motor wisdom
Hmm.
that got you into trouble. And, maybe that came because you were driving under a lot of stress because it was in the snow, and then you went to the gym and then you were trying to do your chest press.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, the whole notion of, reducing your effort is, of course, it's a great strategy in the method, but it should also be that you can scale up your effort and maintain your orientation, to maintain the quality of coordination. That is a metric too. And if you only know the one that where you go down the scale and you don't know how to go back up, well, it's no wonder that people often complain, like, I don't know how to integrate it into my life. Well, right. If every ATM you've ever done or ever taught, or that the way you were trained to think is that reducing is the only strategy or is the strategy, well, you're not going to really experience what it's like on the way back up. It's not going to make a lot of sense coming back into real life because you may be kind of allergic to effort in the wrong way. Of course, there's a kind of effort that really is inefficient, that's chaotic, and that's, it could be injurious. Yes, that you definitely want to be, you don't want that in your life, but
Right.
that
But
doesn't
then you
define
should
everything.
have the sensitivity to know there it
Right.
is. Okay, reorganize or quit.
Yeah.
You know, um, Yesterday I took this class on intentional movement. It's basically, the sort of research about intentional movement.
Mm.
Because, I have to take these classes for my continuing ed credits for my PT license. So one of the things, and of course, the kinds of intentional movement that have been studied are really Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga,
Hmm.
certainly, mindful meditation, certainly. But here's one of the outcomes that come from the intention, not from the lack of physicality, but one of the outcomes is being enjoying more or being more motivated to exercise. because it's more interesting, because it feels safer, because you're more in control, because it's no longer just like get through the reps. It's every single rep is a story, is a novel.
Right.
I thought that was really interesting, and that was not something that I had heard before, that it's actually, there is documentation that it improves people's willingness and interest to exercise.
Yeah. I mean, everybody who exercises, I would assume you're looking to have a good experience of yourself doing it. You know, that's, I mean, not everybody does, of course. And that everybody is dealing with that, and they deal with it by, improving their form, or they get coaching from somebody. But the idea is that you're not going to go and just be miserable, right? You want to take some pleasure in in making an effort, in the coordination, et cetera, in the exertion.
Sure, that's true.
Hmm. I don't mean that everybody should, but most people who are going to the gym are, they're doing it willingly. Some people are not having such the
Right,
best
but
time,
I
but
actually, I don't know about you, but I know
mm,
enough people who take some weird pleasure from the pain,
the
the
punishment of it.
misery of the
It's also true.
workout.
Yeah.
They take that pleasure because it is that feels like an accomplishment.
Mm,
So I I agree that people want some pleasure, but I think many of them take the pleasure from their pride of enduring the pain,
right.
which, by the way, is not something I understand at all. But I mean, childbirth, we could talk about childbirth. Like,
Hmm.
I did that thing that, yeah, after the fact, you can take a lot of pleasure in the fact that
Right.
you endured this thing with, minimum of pharmaceutical help, and then look what you got, the baby.
Yeah.
Well, then weigh eventually 30 pounds, and you got to put it in the car seat. So I actually sometimes ponder if it's possible that the fact that we encourage people to move toward pleasure, we encourage people to do less, we encourage people to rest often, is it possible that that discourages people from thinking that our work is valuable?
I think we leave a lot on the table if that's the only thing we do. I think it's an important capacity as a teacher if you know how to introduce challenge, appropriate challenge, and you actually help the students in the class understand how to reasonably, responsibly guide themselves through challenge, through difficulty. It doesn't have to be every lesson, but it should be in our wheelhouse. It shouldn't be something that Feldenkrais teachers avoid, you know.
I actually I've never been one to just make that my practice personally. Well, because for one thing, I find it kind of boring.
Mhm.
Um, so like if I teach a series, my way is to, either start out with something sweet or start out with something impossible, fill in the blocks. Then I kind of like
Right.
the fifth lesson, sixth lesson, I like it to be a kick butt. The only way you can really accomplish this is to use what you've presumably learned.
Right. You have to apply. Have you been paying attention or not? And here's where you're going to apply
Right,
it.
because otherwise there's no measurement. Like, I don't know how it is for you in the gym, but back in the day when I was running a gym and putting all these very complicated patients through these very intense weight training programs, they had these sheets, and it was
Yep.
every machine and the date
And how
and the
much
weight
you did.
and
That's
the
right.
reps
Yeah.
and the sets. And, like that was 7 years. People saved them. They could have a stack like this big.
Yeah.
And the pride that comes with that. right?
it's an important
Looking
part of it.
back.
Look, when kids learn music lessons, when they take piano lessons, very often that you play in the recital at the end of the semester or whatever.
Yeah, same thing
Now,
with dance.
everybody's terrified, all right, but nobody dies from the recital, and you learn how to get comfortable in front of an audience, but you learn to participate in the world a little bit. You learn to present a piece of music, and a, a piano teacher may have students, it may have them that just don't perform. They just want to take lessons, but it's a little strange. It's a little strange because, hopefully if you want to play an instrument, there's a part of you that would like to share with other people what you play. You know, I think it's an important part. I mean, again, people are different. Some people just are afraid of performing or shy or nervous or just don't want it. They just want to play for themselves.
Right, but that is
That's
part of
totally
being
fine.
in the world.
But the sense of achievement is real. When I started weight training, I worked with a trainer, and yeah, he wrote down how much I was lifting, and I just decided I'm not interested in. I don't want to know the stats. I'm just
Uh,
gonna, it's like the, it's like the what's the movie Bull Durham where the catcher is coaching the new pitcher. He says, "Don't think meat, just throw, just pitch." I just thought I just don't want to get caught up in am I lifting more each week or whatever. Which was good because after a couple of months, he said, "Look, you started it. You were the press was about 150, and now you're pressing 210, right? That feels great. You can look in the mirror. You can look at the weight stack. You can see that you have actually been somewhere and done something and accomplished it. Now,
right,
over the course of 3 years, I'm not looking to infinitely increase the weight. You reach a place of plateau. But then my skills as a Feldenkrais practitioner, what I love is that I can spend time in the gym and I can cut the weight in half and do what you described, which is I can use mild resistance and I can investigate, I can clean up, I can
yes,
stabilize, I can improve, I can take the position of my head and the length through my throat as a metric for, how does this lift or this pull, how can I make it that much better? And that I find personally, I really like that because that's me applying my Feldenkrais understanding to the activity. It's something I can't really do in the training session with the trainer because
right,
it's a set time limit. There's somebody coming after me, et cetera, et cetera. But on my own, it's great. And it's probably been one of the things that's helped me the most become more stable and strong in the way that feels good to me, you know.
right.
Yeah.
I because of my experience in the gym with, people that have complex spinal problems, then I had to get this, and this was before I was a Feldenkrais teacher. Actually, this was the reasons I took my Feldenkrais training, which is another whole story.
Mhm.
But the results that we were seeing in the gym were, we were having great results with people not needing the surgery they were scheduled for and going back to work and having a beautiful time and, becoming lifelong lifters. All that was really great. But they always came back. But that's a whole other story. But I will say that was because it was the unconscious parts of their movement. Now, here's the thing. Because I was in charge of them, I had to cultivate the skill of watching and seeing what tiny thing they were doing that could potentially cause a force that could be hurtful, that would impede progress. For me, it was just all about progress.
Mhm.
Can't have anything that's going to impede the progress, and then we're going to slide back. We need to keep making. But they couldn't tell.
That's right.
I could tell. I was the authority, and I could say, "Oh yeah, no, you need to relax your jaw there. Oh no, no, you need to use your shoulder blades like this." I could say that, but they couldn't feel it. And what that meant was when they went back to work, to catch chickens or, throw the garbage cans around on the truck,
Mhm.
they couldn't catch it because they couldn't feel it.
Yeah.
Even though they were so strong by then, they had so much endurance. At the gym, they could do everything in the most beautiful, coordinated way. But they didn't have the capacity to translate it into that thing where you pick up a full garbage can. And, that was back in the day where they did that with the
Right.
garbage can. That was, they didn't roll it on and then the truck lifts it up.
Right. Right. No, but that's so true. Like when I started lifting weights, certainly there was a part of me that thought going into it, I'm just going to use every bit of my anatomical, functional, my Feldenkrais understanding to obviously keep myself safe and to execute the way I think I should or how it should work. What you learn is that you don't know very much if you haven't done this thing before. And especially if you're lifting heavy, the thing you're describing is the existence of effort. It's true. The Weber-Fechner thing is true. When the effort is heightened, it is more challenging to be more accurate in the way you sense. That is the challenge. And but to me it's a good challenge. It's a good thing to realize. It wasn't like I had some Pollyanna expectation. Okay, I'm just going to be perfect and symmetrical and everything. I could feel all kinds of asymmetries and details and things I didn't like, and I worked my way through many of them. But to me, the point is that you learn how to scale your abilities.
Right.
Um,
Well, it occurs to me when you're talking about this that we haven't really talked about time or speed,
mhm,
because that's another thing that we do as practitioners as we go slow.
right.
And it is very possible to lift heavy and slow. So there's time,
Yes.
but also life does not go slowly.
Right.
So it's also important to be able to do things fast, to understand how to recruit the resources you need to recruit slowly while you're efforting, so that when it comes to the point that you've got to push the car off the road, you can do that fast,
Yes.
because you can't slow down and say, okay, I got my feet in the right position.
No, it's true. Life is not offering you always the best conditions for you to learn. I mean, that's why it's so important to be able to control the conditions when you are learning, to know how to control them, but it's also important to know how to challenge yourself. I mean, the other thing about the this topic for the retreat also is that so many of our clients, they want to know how to do the difficult things. They want this to be relevant to
They
their
have puppies too.
they have they have children and puppies and jobs and they have pursuits and hobbies and some of them are athletic, and they want this stuff to be relevant in those domains. If it's not relevant in those domains for them, why are they going to continue coming and seeking our help?
Right. Well, it's nice when they come and lie on the floor and they feel so relaxed and good. But aren't we supposed to be about function?
Yeah, I mean that's where you're afraid. I love we were talking in the car last year and you said, yeah, that's somatic recreation. That's what
That's
so many people get stuck in.
And
So,
that's perfectly nice, but that's like a massage. It
right,
feels super good.
right,
And honestly, where now it's true, like especially in Alexandria and I, there are a number of really hard lessons. And there are lessons in which Moshe says strain, strain.
yes,
But in as far as I know in our work, there is no regular way of measuring improvement. What do we even mean by improvement? Like, really, does improvement mean that you don't need to come to class anymore?
right. Or are you just self-reporting, I feel so long, or I feel so soft, or it's a self-reporting standard.
Right. So, what is it like for me? For me, one question I always ask people, a couple of questions is number one, what do you do for fun? And number two, what are the things that you need and want to do that you either avoid or dread?
What's a hard thing you kind of have to do? You know
Because
you're gonna have to do it again. Yeah.
those are the things that I need to organize my work toward, because I'm not going to feel like I was successful
Right.
unless that person can come in and say, yes, I vacuumed the entire house and scrubbed the tubs and I'm fine. Or, yes, I got the 25-pound turkey out of the oven by myself.
Yeah.
Or, yes, I spent the entire day pulling weeds and I'm fine. That's what I want.
I mean, it's a good thing for those of you listening. Think about something that you do that's hard, that is difficult, that involves strain. I mean, I've talked, my wife and I are playing in a band, right? And we have to go into the city every week to rehearse. I have a keyboard now that weighs 60 pounds, 70 pounds, and is a vertical 88 key keyboard that I have to roll from the parking garage. I mean, first I have to get it into my car, but
You
then
have
I
to
got to
get it
get
into your car.
I have to
I
get
know
into
what
the
your
car
driveway is like.
down
You
the
have to
steps.
get it
Yeah.
down the hill.
It's bananas. Like
Right.
it psychologically, when we started the band last year, it was not, I did not look forward to that experience. It was kind of a very mixed feeling of like, I really want to play music, but oh my God, this is now I have made it a project that I know how to lift this thing. I know how to maneuver. I know how to go through the streets of New York carrying this thing. I mean, it does have wheels, but it is not light. And
Right.
understand.
And one little wrong move and that thing can go.
That's right. That's right. But it psychologically, it makes a huge difference knowing how to organize my effort for that. I am not reducing my effort when I carry this thing around. That does not work well. You have to have the appropriate effort for this.
Right. And you have to be ready to exert more effort in case the situation gets out of
In
control.
case somebody bumps into it on 35th Street. So
There you go.
yeah. I want to share another article that we both
Oh, yeah.
liked very much, which was another article about people in their later decades doing difficult things, and this is Bonnie Sumner. She is the world record holder in the dead hang at the age of 81. And the article is great. I mean, the pictures are terrific. You know, it
Right.
shows her hanging there, shows the clock. There's another section where it shows this. I love this. Here's an article she read. It talks about how her husband passed away, and she decided she was not going to go gently into the later years of her life. She was going to really start working out. And here you can see the dates, the amount of times she did the lift. Here's her
Mhm.
hands with the chalk. I mean, it's kind of beautiful to see her project of something difficult that and you can see the look of determination on her face.
All right.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So maybe we should be asking our clients to aspire to something hard
Hmm.
that, that they wouldn't ordinarily even think that they could possibly do. Because if you're going to do something that is very difficult, and we've talked about this, then you need to condition yourself so that you actually have more capacity than anything you would ever do, so that you don't harm yourself.
This is
That's
the
the thing.
you're going to describe now what you texted me about the difference between exercise and work, and
Yeah.
we're going to talk about the physiological headroom idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Because,
ahead.
and that, like I said, when I was running the gym, that was the whole thing. Like, I know that your job is catching chickens. And I don't know if you know about the chicken catchers, but for free range chickens, they do not
Somebody has to go
go,
get them.
they do not go peacefully into the truck.
You don't just wave them in.
No, blow the whistle and they march up. No, you have to run after them, bend down, scoop them up, and you have to they put a chicken between each of their fingers like that. So I know that one chicken or even 10 chickens does not weigh as much as you are doing on the bicep curl
Right.
here. But the fact is that exercise is what you do to prepare yourself to do work. Because people will say, oh, well, my work is really active. Well, that's nice. But your
Right.
exercise is preparing you to do that. And it has to be, your capacity has to be more.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think a lot of Feldenkrais practitioners, they have an aspirational goal that the method is somehow going to make them more efficient and also build their capacity. Those are really two different projects, unless you're using the lessons in a very specific kind of exercisey way. Exercise is really where you are building your capacity to do more. That's what strength training is for. It's so that when you have to push the luggage up into the thing and that costs 7 units of work, well, you don't just have 7 units in the bank. You have 57 units. So it
Right.
means
Because
you,
if
you
all
can
you've got
perform
is
it.
7, you're not going to be able to get it back out from
Right.
overhead. I can tell you that for sure.
The definition I love, years ago, Jeff Haller recommended me the book Body by Science. Sorry,
Uh-huh.
written by Doug McGuff, who is I believe he's an ER MD in training. He is a practicing doctor, but he also runs a strength training clinic, and the book just talks about the science of strength training. It's a very good primer, and some lecture that he gave at a conference that's somewhere on YouTube, he described, what you're doing in strength training is you're trying to build physiological headroom. And when he first said that phrase, I was like, what does that mean? He said, well, physiological headroom is the difference between the least you can do and the most you can do. And your exercise, your strength training, the idea is to keep a large difference between those
Mm-hmm.
two things, between the least you can do. He says, when the least you can do, when there is no difference between the least you can do and the most you can do, you're dead.
Right.
And if you've ever spent time, my parents are in their late 80s now, almost 90. For my father, there is not a big difference between the least he can do and the most he can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a very good image to understand this aspect of function that effort serves. Good effort really serves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I like the savings account image also, that because I tell my people this too, like work is what wears you down.
Mm,
Exercise is what builds you up. So exercise is when you're putting, your muscularity into a savings account. And work is what you're spending every day.
right.
If you're spending every bit that you're bringing in every day, then okay, you can maintain, but one little
Bad day.
mishap
Yeah.
and you are in trouble. And that's how I got started, because that's what happens with work injuries. One little mishap and there's no more. And that costs a lot of money for a lot of people, for a lot of employers, for a lot of insurance companies, and a lot of heartbreak and physical discomfort and misery
Right.
for people, just because they were spending every bit of physical resource that they just weren't building up.
Right. The opposite of physiological headroom is your physiological debt. It's like debt that you're in.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. And then you're laying around and only doing what's light and easy. And then somebody asks you to carry all their groceries in, and all of a sudden you're having a problem. To say nothing of a tiny little fall or a slip
Yeah.
or 18 inches of snow, which is a big demand.
Lately, it sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I sort of see Feldenkrais as one of the things it's really great for is it's for qualifying effort. It's for
Yeah.
understanding. It's not just for reducing effort. It's really to help you qualify how effort is distributed, how it can be poorly distributed or well distributed, its role in coordination and all the different kinds of lessons we use, from the softest to the more challenging ones, the ones that have big transitions and big constraints. And it's an effort qualifying modality, not just
Yes.
an effort reducing
No,
modality.
we reduce only to qualify.
Hmm.
I was just thinking about another story about my days in the gym. And when I was early on, I was still in the gym when I was early on, a Feldenkrais teacher. And one of my patients who had a very strenuous home exercise program, also she was in the gym, but also a home exercise program, said to me, I'm not going to do those exercises anymore because now that I do these movement lessons, they're too easy.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's great.
Right.
Now we'll really start to build.
Yeah.
Now we'll make them harder because you have strength and intelligence about your movement. Now we can really do something. Both are important, but one does not give you the other one. Strengthening does not necessarily give you movement intelligence, and movement awareness, intention does not give you strength or endurance. Two different things.
Yeah. So in the process of scaling, I mean, one of the questions I had that we talked about was this notion of adaptation that's taking place in either the nervous system. There's certainly the phrase nervous system is used by Feldenkrais teachers, practitioners, trainers with great frequency. It's really the domain of the method, I think a lot of people see. And when I look around at the research, another article that appeared in the Times recently was like how strength training took over America, right? There's
Right.
been a series of articles just talking about the popularity of these kinds of things that people are doing now. And it's has a lot to do not just with the fact that there's a lot of people on Instagram looking really muscly and fit. It's also that the research is there to support it, and the conversation about the research combined with all the video image you can see of people who do it, they tend to look like that. It's all there for you to see the adaptations of hypertrophy that come from doing these things. The process creates the adaptation that is part of the conversation that people understand and why they want to do these things. And my question was, well, then what is the adaptation we think is happening during awareness through movement? Or when people get up and they feel so differently in the way that they are supported, or they're not as tense, or whatever the reductions. I think to a large degree, practitioners, we 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 want the method to have some sort of scientific uh, validity like that, even though the research is not there. Um, and at the same time, I mean, asking you, who's much more trained, what is the adaptation that we think is taking place? Is there an adaptation? Is it just a momentary wash of neurotransmitters that we experience? And
Well,
we want to assign a lot of value to it. It is valuable, but does it scale?
yeah, no. Well, let's just talk basic. Let's just talk like the basics,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
I'm all about just like let's just nail our terms down.
Okay. You have an experience, any new, any novel experience, anything that gets your attention.
Right.
Remember, attention is the first thing that's required. Now, if you're in exercise class and you are doing the thing, whatever, and you're thinking about whether or not your boss is going to fire you the next day, you're not going to get the same effects as you are if you're paying attention to what you're doing. You're not going to get the same neurological effects, meaning you won't get the same physiological effects. Here's why. When you first start a strength training, when you first start an exercise, the improvements that you get at the beginning are not tissue improvements. it takes a while to make more circulation, to make more fibers, more, actin and myosin, to get fatter fiber. It takes a while. At first, what you're getting is that improved coordination between your intention, your motor cortex, and your motor output. That's what you're getting at first. So, okay. You have to have attention. And then, so an experience gets your attention, your ATM lesson, the way you feel after the ATM lesson. Your teacher skillfully directed your attention.
Right. We're assuming it's a great lesson. You felt you did something really nice in the lesson. You satisfying experience, right?
Right. Then you're getting a whole bunch of neurotransmitters. You're getting a whole bunch of neurons in maybe new patterns, sending neurotransmitters into the little gap between them and the next neuron. And those neurotransmitters are firing up that neuron. Now remember, neurotransmitters are not all excitatory. In fact, most of them are inhibitory. So you're getting this balance between excite, inhibit, and whatever. It's a new combo.
It's a new balance, right?
It's a new combo of things. It's like a new recipe that you're trying in the kitchen. It's got some new ingredients, or maybe the same ingredients in different proportions, whatever. It's different. That's great. And that's an experience. And that momentary chemical recipe is going to cause a momentary shift in your motor output, in your interpretation of that output. It's a whole brain thing. And that's really great. And then those neurotransmitters, as they always are, get taken up and it's gone. It was a beautiful neurotransmitter recipe, just like your new recipe that you tasted, that it was a great experience, and it's gone now. You can remember it, but you would have to make it again.
Right. The necessity of repetition.
That's right.
And not repetition in some awful mechanical, zombified fashion, but
pay attention.
Right.
So now if you do this thing and make this recipe of neurotransmitters firing and exciting and inhibiting, you do that over and over. Oh, well, here's the first thing that happens. Then you're going to start to have to make more receptors in those little endings so that you're ready. Like, oh, okay, just like if you exercise your muscles, you're going to make more fibers and more circulation. You start making that bath of that particular combination, you're going to start building more receptors, right? So that can happen more easily. You keep doing that thing with those receptors, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's not enough receptors. I've got to make a few more dendrites. I got to make a few more little fibers with more receptors. So I can be ready. It's when you get a structural change, which comes from repetition over time, attention, repetition, duration, and intensity.
Yeah.
Intensity. The more intense the experience is, the more intense the neurotransmitter event's going to be, and the more receptors you're going to make, and the more dendrite connections you're going to make. And then it becomes a structural change, and then it's actually learning, right? So attention, which we do have in our work, repetition, not so much. Duration, well, you would have to repeat over time.
Right.
Now, what we do have in our work is variation, which we call novelty, which is a mechanism that can increase attention. So it is a way of increasing attention. You still have to have repetition over time to get an actual physiological change, meaning it's not just a super great recipe that you remember then.
Right. It's not one and
really
done,
gonna
even if
make
it
a
was
change.
even if it was a great relevant experience to your life, you're still going to have to revisit it often. I mean, I know this experience. Part of what I think is so great about the method is its breadth, the variety of lessons. That does work against the conversation though
Of learning. It works against learning.
of actually building consistency on something. And sometimes from practitioners you'll hear, but I do one lesson a week and that's kind of enough. And it's like, okay, that's great. But if you really want to learn, if you really want to lay down the new structures, you have to do it again and again. How many times do you have to do it? Well, it's probably different for each people, but I don't think we should be afraid of practicing and doing what we say we're out to do. It's like, folks, if you talk to people who exercise, if they don't exercise every week, they start losing the benefits of that too. There's nothing bad about the repetition and consistency aspect. I think some practitioners are somehow bathed in this story that that repetition somehow means they're just going to be mindless repetition, or you know it's like, folks, there's a great strength to repetition, to doing the
It's
lesson again,
essential.
and
And if you don't do it,
Mhm.
you lose those dendritic connections
That's right.
because you prune, because your brain only has 13 watts of power that it can use. And if you're not using that thing, it's going to prune it.
Right. And for practitioners, it's also like, okay, how many times have you done coordinating flexors and extensors? Maybe you've done that a bunch. Okay, show me. Show me
Right.
the lesson. Because if the lesson is just this thing that's supposed to produce an interesting experience that is coming out of the end, that's different than being a teacher where you should, at the drop of a hat, be able to show me the finished product of it, show how the arms go all the way over to the floor, and that you basically understand how to reproduce that, and that you know this from practice, from refinement, from understanding, and
Right.
that it's not just this experiential swamp that you enter every time and something new comes out and isn't
And
that
it feels
interesting.
great and it's wonderful.
Right, because that may not be learning. That may be more along the somatic recreation
Yeah.
line that we're talking about.
I learned when I first started teaching ATM that I do the lesson, if I'm teaching once a week, I do the lesson every single day that week.
Hmm.
And what I learned for myself, and this is absolutely consistent, is on that fifth lesson, it's a brand new experience.
You suddenly find out things that you really didn't in the first four or the first three.
Absolutely
Yeah.
didn't. It's not that I didn't learn something, but it was kind of predictable. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden, the whole world opens up. So on the sixth and the seventh time that I do it, it's a whole new me doing it. So I think that's the repetition. It's
Yeah.
like I've already got that. So I'm ready for the discovery. And that feeling. I love that feeling. One time, the first time I ever did this, I taught the same ATM lesson 8 weeks in a row in my ATM
Hmm.
class. And on the fifth week, somebody in my class who's a practitioner sat up and said, I have never done this lesson before. I'm like, I know that feeling.
Yeah. Because you have to get out of your first draft mindset. Your ability to have new experiences and method, that's a great thing. It's not the only thing though. I mean, for me
Right.
in the classical musical world, in the early days when you're trying to learn more difficult pieces, like you're getting into the meat of the repertoire, it's a lot of work. Those pieces are not easy to learn. You have to practice a lot. But there's a difference between your teens or whenever you start to have this experience where you finally learn your first Chopin scherzo, like a big difficult piece from the romantic repertoire, and you not only learn it, you memorize it, and then you play it on the recital. Great. That's once. Now, for a lot of
Right.
students, it's once, and then they go and they learn something else.
Right.
This is very, very different from the professional. A professional learns that piece, performs it maybe hundreds of times. So that when
Mm-hmm.
you meet them down the road, when they're 50 and you happen to meet them and the conversation comes up, oh, do you know the Chopin Scherzo? Yes, I haven't played it in a while, but they can play it, right?
Right.
And I mean, in other words, it might not be, perfectly at, concert level ready, but it's not far from the surface because
Right.
it was deeply learned. It was really learned. It wasn't learned once.
Right.
Yeah.
And then substitute. Well, we know this about learning. Like if you learn something and then right away you learn something else, you lose the first thing.
Yeah.
We know that. Yeah. I yeah, you know that when you've been doing ATM a long time, there's also that other disappointing feeling of doing a lesson that you've done so many times, that you've taught so many times, that you know so well, and you get up off the floor after doing that lesson and you feel exactly that same.
Right. The returns have plateaued somehow. Yeah.
That's right. And in a certain way, that's kind of sad and disappointing. But in another way, it's just like, okay, this is part of your repertoire. It's like your people that, 30 years later, they can still play the piece,
Right.
still know the thing. And the other interesting thing is, like being an assistant in trainings, and when you do the ATM lesson, then you start to realize that you need to teach the lesson to yourself, right? So the teacher is teaching a lesson to people who are more beginners,
Right.
and the way their attention is being directed
That's
and
right.
why it's being directed based on what else is coming in the day is a particular way, which at this point in my development is not at all
It's no
interesting
right.
or new or
It's
like
not going to hold your attention, right? That's
right,
the autodidactic growth process is that, yeah, you should really understand what you need to focus on in the lesson
right.
or in the difference between what maybe somebody new is going to receive versus what you'll be focusing on. Yeah.
The first time I ever taught ATM at the Feldenkrais conference back in the day when we had live conferences. I was a pretty new practitioner, well, not that new, but maybe I've been a practitioner 5 years or 7 years. I taught a lot of ATM. And so I kind of feel like, oh, I can teach super amazing hard lessons. Also, I like to teach super amazing hard lessons. I can do this because these are all practitioners. Oh dear God.
You ran into a wall.
First of all, they're all practitioners. So whatever lesson I was teaching, they're all doing their own lesson anyway.
Mm,
Whatever they think I mean to do or that they're interested in. And secondly, when it comes to the hard stuff, nobody will try it.
mm.
Everybody's using that as an opportunity to rest. Now, I just want to say, and at this time, in preparation for this first experience, which I was completely shocked about, and I was teaching, I think, a series. I was teaching every day. So I was teaching a series of lessons, and I was teaching the lessons leading up to the frog stand. Now,
This is squatting and you're putting your head down between your knees and threading your arms out around under your knees. That?
no,
No.
it's your upper arms on your ribs, palms on the floor, the rest of your
Um,
body completely straight off the floor, balanced on,
it's like what do they call that? A front lever? No,
I don't know what they
that's like
call
a
it, but
it's a
whatever.
gymnastic maneuver for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have been teaching those lessons. I've been doing them and teaching them to my class of, regular everyday people with regular everyday problems with an age range from mid 30s to 80 something.
Mm,
They were perfectly game
they could
doing
do
these
it.
lessons.
Yeah.
And in fact, there was a guy in my class who had had a hip disarticulation
Mm,
because of cancer. So literally, he had one leg, the other one had been disarticulated, femur removed from acetabulum. And that guy, with that asymmetry, with that imbalance, did the perfect frog stand.
Mm.
The perfect thing. Even the people in their 80s were like, I can do this. I can do this. Oh, look, I did it for a nanosecond. And when I went to teach it at the conference, nobody even
It was like you asked everybody to run the
tried.
marathon.
It was like I was asking them to commit a sin.
Mm.
I felt wrong. And of course, then there's that weird thing of teaching and nobody's doing anything, but it's being recorded. So you know you have to teach the whole lesson, even though you're like teaching to a ghost class.
This class is disarticulated. Yeah.
Really interesting. I'm excited about bringing effort as something wonderful and good to our work.
Yeah. Some of the best experiences I've had in awareness through movement, certainly some of them came from a tremendous reduction and specifying of my effort and feeling incredibly soft. I have had the opposite experience where challenging lessons done with great effort, obviously paying attention to what I'm doing and not taking myself to some inappropriate level of exertion or injuring myself. Those lessons produced something pretty spectacular as well. I think what was lacking really is some sort of coherence in the culture that helps a practitioner actually see that for themselves. And is there some path to follow? Because I don't really think there is in the profession. I think it's after people leave their training, they wander and they find whoever, whatever advanced training they want to go to or whatever retreat they're going to go to, and
Right.
they get attracted to who they get attracted to, his teaching style, but there's not necessarily continued exposure to ideas they wouldn't choose for themselves.
Right. Or it becomes, this is a kind of interesting thing. It becomes some idea about being a Feldenkrais practitioner means adhering exactly
Mm.
to what you learned in your training. Like you have to adhere to the rules, right? You do that, so you're respecting and honoring the work by only doing that.
As if the training was the pinnacle of understanding of what the method is,
Instead of
which
the beginning.
instead of the beginning. Yeah.
Right. So I think, yeah, and it's not that the trainings are not good. They are good. But you can only do so much in that amount of time. And because, half the time it's about personal development. It's not about finding out what's important to somebody else
Mm-hmm.
and meeting the needs. I mean, you think about it with what we know about creating efficiency and we apply that to the people who want to be stronger, want to be more fit, want to go on and accomplish physical feats. We have a lot to offer if we direct it that way, if we're specific that way, not, oh, come to ATM class and it'll be really great and it'll just happen, because it won't just happen.
No, I agree. For me, you've been a practitioner for how many years?
32.
So I'm in my 23rd or 24th year. Um, yeah, I want the work to be relevant to real life. I've seen enough of what a certain kind of flavor of the work can help people with. It's important that people get help that way, but I also want it to live up to its other capacities in the world to really help people in the domains that their beloved activity, their challenging activity. As a practitioner, trust me, after a couple decades of work, you want to be useful to those people too. You don't simply
Hmm.
want to be recapitulating certain ideas in your training over and over again. You need to
Right.
learn what you don't know, and you need to understand certain things that just you may not have encountered yet. Those are very important to becoming professionally viable and satisfied, and feeling like you're achieving something in your own practice with people.
Right. What do you want to achieve?
In my practice,
Yeah.
I after the pandemic, I moved. We were living in Long Island. We'd lived in the city for a long time, and now my practice is it's part of a strength training facility now. So occasionally I get to work with
The
clients.
gym.
I get to work with clients in the gym, and it's really great. I've been invited to teach a group of piano teachers next month, which will really be great. And more, I would like to start addressing the realm of pianists because it's taken me a long time to feel confident enough with what I understand, and I'm getting ready. I'm
That's good.
getting ready to address that kind of audience. Yeah, that's one thing I really want in my practice. But also, I want the work to be much more legible for people.
Define legible.
They not only can feel that there's been some change, but they understand it. They start looking for it in their life on a day-to-day basis more and more, and that they see the work not as a mystery, but as a real practical resource for how I feel like a lot of what's in the method is learning how to develop problem-solving behavior.
I agree.
I mean, experiential, interesting, somatic, it's all that's lovely.
Yeah.
But after you've solved a couple of difficult problems for yourself, you realize that that is a superpower.
Yeah. And the truth is, there are a lot of ATMs that are just that.
Yes.
They are designed to present a difficult problem, like the frog stand, and to solve the difficult problem,
Hmm.
not to make you relaxed, not to make your back
Right.
flat on the floor, not
Right.
any of that,
Yeah.
but to solve difficult problems.
And to teach you how to think as well as how to move, and to teach you how to make an effort properly. That's in
And
the work.
and the other thing is about, we talk about making the impossible possible. Well, you know, if we incorporate this idea about teaching people how to master effort, things that are hard, then that is literally what we're doing
Hmm.
in an overt way. I like that, doing things in an overt way. Hey, this is what we're going to do. There's all that research about uh, how someone gets up from the floor is related to how many more years they're going to live.
Right. The sit to stand tests and the yeah, yeah.
Right, or from the floor.
Oh,
Yeah,
getting up, yeah, whether you use your
from the
hands or
floor.
not when you
Whether
get up
you
there.
use
Yeah.
one hand, two
Yeah.
hands, a prop, whatever. I mean, in my mind, then that is like ground zero. Everybody should that should be our test. Like everybody can get up from the floor,
Right.
without without two hands and a
That should
prop
be an
and
identifiable
and a
skill,
caregiver.
or a dog to put your hand
Right. I'm just saying, it's just that simple. That for a lot of people, that is a very big effort. You know what? For a lot of people, they don't know that they can't get up from the floor until all of a sudden they fall down on the floor. It's been so long since they've done it.
on. Right. You're like the frog in the water. You don't realize
Yeah,
how
you
long you've
don't
been
even
deconditioning into the
know.
condition you
That's
are in.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. All of those things, like just the list of things that must be done, like the puppy.
The shoveling.
The shoveling. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm so
Oh, the
proud of my
shoveling.
shoveling. So proud. I can tell you
Lots
that
of practice these days.
I really used everything I know because, by the way, I've never shoveled snow before. I always had somebody else do it.
Hmm.
But there was a lot of snow and I have a lot of driveway and nobody was going to come get their lesson unless I did something about that snow. And it was fascinating. And I could see all of the neighbors looking out their windows like, what
Checking
is
on you,
she
making sure you're.
doing and why? What is she doing? And
Why didn't she hire those teenagers again?
right, it was hours. It was hours and hours and hours. And then, of course, the wind came and blew all the snow back on the driveway. So I had to do it again. But it was such great learning. Like, I know how to shovel snow. And I wasn't even sore. I was like,
There's a difference.
yeah,
That's another thing that's come from actually weight training is compared to my 20-year-old self, who if my hands felt stiff, I somehow, recoiled. You have friends or whoever your people, and when they start to work out again, if they haven't for a while, and they get the bug, and they go to the gym and they come back and they're like, oh, I feel sore, and then people say, oh well, the second day will be worse than the first, and there's all the it's all the tropes that people. It's like after you do it for a while, I'm not sore. Like after I
right,
work out, I know I worked out, but I've conditioned myself. Now I'm not sore after I work out. Now if I do something bad, I'll know. Like, oh,
right.
you get the same signal, but you reach a certain level, and it's I would consider it one of the achievements.
It
I
is.
can go and lift for 45 minutes, and I come home that night. I know I worked out. I also know what it feels like when I'm depleted. Like, ugh, I worked out. Like, hmm, I'm aware that I did something difficult, but you're not in this defensive posture to your own attempts to help yourself. It's kind of like, yeah, now I'm in the groove. I am conditioning myself. It's such a
Right,
better place to
because
be.
you made more blood vessels in your little muscles,
You
and
have
now
more
you
capacity.
can repair way more quickly. You don't get that inflammatory response because you built new tissue.
This is like the response you had when we were talking earlier, when we were planning the workshop. You said, the question for practitioners is, well, if you know what you're doing, then why can't you do what you want,
Mhm.
right? And your answer to that question was because you don't have the resources.
Right.
It's not enough to just have the awareness or the memory of certain lessons,
No,
or
it's not
or
enough
the
to know
or the
how.
love of the practice, or just knowing how. You also need the physical resources. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
You need contractile tissue. You need strong ligaments. You need the thing. You need the bones.
I had an experience in my office where a rather elderly client took a bad step after putting on their coat. Took a bad step, and you know that the expression that comes on people's face when oh they're but it was a great experience because I caught him. I caught him and I grabbed him and I stable and I was so stable and there for them, and I just pulled them back up to stand. And of course,
That's
they
a
were
good
incredibly
feeling.
grateful. But I was great not to have somebody fall in my fall in my lobby, of course, and didn't want them to get hurt. But you know that I attribute that to not just my awareness, but to having the resources to be there to know how to catch them,
That's right.
to that strength.
That's right. I had something different happen. I had somebody face plant,
Mm,
blood everywhere, couldn't move. A very large human, and but this person needed to, somehow get up off the floor and was not very interested in calling 911. And so this person is also very strong. You are very strong. When you carry a lot of weight around, I mean, for all
Yeah.
that people say crap about being overweight, that thing builds muscle. That person is very strong. And I happen to know a lot about getting up off the floor. And I got to tell you, the two of us together, she hadn't been so strong and known that she was so strong, never would have worked.
Mm.
If I hadn't been so clear about what needed to happen first, second, 15th, like how we're going to do this, it also would never have worked because just strength or just intelligence alone would not have saved it. It took an hour, but it was a really interesting, rewarding hour. And there was much celebrating at the end, our accomplishment, our teamwork, strength, and intelligence. And, a bunch of towels to clean up the blood.
Yeah.
But it's
Wow.
a thing, right? I would never have had that sense of accomplishment
Mm-hmm.
if I hadn't also been faced with this impossible situation.
Yeah, where that is all so immediately relevant.
Right. Just like you in the fall. I had the resources. She had the resources. That is a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can catch anybody. That's
Yeah.
confidence. That is another one of the things that intentional movement builds in people. And that is confidence,
Yeah. Agency. Yeah.
self-esteem, right? But again, you can have confidence and self-esteem and absolutely not have the resources to do the thing.
Yes.
We got to be able to do the thing.
You got to be able to do the thing.
Yes.
Great. All right. Well, shall we stop here?
We could stop here or we could talk another hour, but I bet we can do that another time. What do you think?
Yeah, let's pause here, and then for the next time we'll talk a little bit about neuroplasticity, like a little more honest framing of neuroplasticity. And maybe we'll also talk about some of the rules that nobody made that many practitioners feel stuck with,
That's a great idea.
and how our retreat is going to break the rules that nobody made.
Right, because rules are made to be broken.
Very often.
I mean, that's one of the principle of no principles.
You have to know when.
I say we live the dream.
All right. Thanks, Candy.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay warm.
You too. And let's hope no more precipitation.
My brother in Boston, they got 30 inches of snow and they're getting like another 8 tonight. So
They are?
that's what he said. That he lives south of Boston. So
Oh dear.
yeah.
Oh dear.
Anyway,
Well,
more chance to grow,
yeah.
more chance to get to know your neighbors.
Yep.
They had a shoveling party, so that's good.
I would like to
Okay.
have a video of that. See how they were doing it.
He'll take one. He'll take one and send
Well,
it to us.
you were asking why I didn't have the kids shovel my driveway. Well, they shoveled my neighbor's walkway. Are you kidding? That was the least organized disaster waiting to happen. There is no way I would let those children
Arm
shovel
themselves
my
again with it.
driveway. Right. No way.
High standards.